All right, so we're up to the Mishnah. Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Yeah.
Zach, we're up to the Gemara.
I'm sorry, the Gemara. Right, the Gemara.
But
So
there is no room in yeshiva.
Of course, there's
The
no
men's
room.
section, the ladies section, there's no room. My wife just called me. There's
It's
no
like a
room.
rock. It's like a rock concert over there. Mama's like a rock concert. They told
But
me
they don't want to open
did
it. But like you
did
said this morning,
anybody
they don't
ask
want to
you
open
for
the
an
classrooms.
Did anybody ask you for an update?
No,
Did
I
anybody ask you that?
No, I wanted to offer one.
So keep the conversations you have with your wife private.
Wow. They didn't want to open the class. They don't want to open the classrooms either.
Of course not. The classrooms are holy. That's what I was telling you last night. This morning.
I texted. What's it called? There are no. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Naftali,
Okay.
you want Musa? There was 10 times the amount of people at the Met game yesterday where it was that they were into Shia tonight. So that's Musa.
That's
Okay?
true. That is Musa. That is Musa. That is Musa. Although I don't know, in ratio, is it the same?
Ratio to population of New York City.
Yeah,
That you
maybe
always
that's a
have to-
physics.
That you always
Maybe
have to
that's-
figure out.
I want to say that what is talking about Musa? There's nothing like seeing Reb Aaron looking as if he's going to pop out of the screen to choke Naftali Liner. That's
Listen.
Musa.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, so let's go. We got to do extra. We got to do extra Gemara tonight. So again, the Mishnah is talking about the cases. We have a domino effect cases just in the Mishnah where you had a woman, a Yisroel, who was married to a kohen, had a kid, kohen died, married a levi, had a kid, levi died. Levi died. How does it go? I already lost track. Levi died. Then married a Yisroel, and then the Yisroel died. But she had kids. So Kozman, she has a kid from a Yisroel, she can't eat the Maisa. And when she has a kid from the Levi, she can't eat the truma. Once all those kids die, then she goes back to her father's house and she eats the truma. And the same case, the opposite. If you have a Bas Kohen that marries Yisroel, and then the opposite case. The main thing to know from this Mishnah is that when a woman has a child, if she's a Bas Yisroel and she marries a Kohen, if she has that Kohen, that child allows her to eat truma. And if it's a Bas Kohen who marries Yisroel and they have a child, that child will not allow her to eat truma until both the husband and the child die. Right? Then she could go back to her father's house to eat truma. Right? Again, having a child makes it that if it's a Bas Kohen, she can't eat truma, and if it's a Bas Yisroel, she can eat truma. That's the basic thing from the Mishnah. The same thing with a Levi, with Meiser, etc. Yeah, are we good with that? Fine. So now let's see the Mishnah. Gemara, I'm sorry. Meis B'na mi Levi toichel b'truma. So he said, once her son dies from a Levi, right, and she was married to a Kohen first. So again, she was married to a Kohen. Then she had a kid with the Kohen. Then the Kohen died. She married a Levi, and she had a kid with the Levi. Then the husband dies. The Levi husband dies. She's not allowed to go back to eat truma because she has a son from the Levi. But once that Levi's son dies, then she's free and she can go back to eating truma. The hadra achla mishum b'na minol. And how do you know that she's allowed to go back? Because she has a son still from the Kohen, right? She still has a son from the Kohen. So she's allowed to go back, even though she's no longer married to the Kohen. The Kohen died, right? Again, the Kohen died. She married a Levi. She had kids from each one of them, right? So so when the Levi dies, so she's not allowed to eat truma because she still has a son who's a Levi. But once the son who's a Levi dies, now her Kohen son, who's still alive, takes over and she's allowed to eat truma. So how do you know that a woman is allowed to eat truma because of her son, right? That's basic rule that we were saying. Because the passuk says the word ubas, right, with an extra vav, right? So the vav says she can go back to eating truma if she has a son. So they're going to ask Kiman Rabbi Kiva, the Darish Vavi. You're going according to the Mandam that says that we go Rabbi Kiva who darshans every extra vav in the Torah. The answer is no. You could even say it's Rabbanon Kula Ubas Kra Yisera. The entire word Ubas is an extra word. So since it's extra, then we can use it to darshan out that as long as she has a son who's a kohen, she's still allowed to eat terumah. Even if in the meantime she got married to Yisroel and she got married to a levi, as soon as those marriages are over and she no longer has kids from those marriages and all she has left is a son who's a kohen, she's still allowed to eat terumah. Fine. Now the Gemara says 5 reasons how we know that she could only eat terumah because of the son. She cannot eat chazav v'shoik. Chazav v'shoik is the part of the korban shlamim that go to Kaihanim. So she's allowed to go back. She goes back to her father's house, or not her father's house, but because of her son, she's only allowed to eat truma. She's not allowed to eat the chazav v'shoik. So Tanarabon, when she goes back to her father's house, chayzeres l'truma, she goes back. I'm sorry, I said for the son. When she goes back to her father's house, meaning once she gets divorced or becomes an almana, she goes back to her father's house. She only goes back to truma. She cannot get chazav v'shoik. So Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Ravina Bar Shila, Mikra. How do you know? Because it says he b'trumas akachim loy seichel. She's not allowed to eat trumas kachim, right? The muram v'nakachim loy seichel. What it means is anything that was given from the word truma from kachim, she's not allowed to eat. Right? So that tells us that truma she could eat, but anything that comes from kachim, which is chazav v'shoik, that she's not allowed to eat. Fine. That's one way we learn it. Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Bar Avuha Melechem v'loi kol lechem. It says in the passuk that she can go back. She goes back from any lechem, she can go back from bread v'loi kol lechem, but not every bread. Prat l'chazav v'shoik, it comes to exclude chazav v'shoik. Right now, what is it? Lechem, how? Lechem, what do you mean kol lechem? Kol lechem is bread. So Rashi says lechem means any type of food here. It's interesting Rashi, right? That lechem could be any type of food. Fine. So she's out from the chazav v'shoik. Maskol Rami vchomer ema prat lahafaros nedarim. Who says that the lechem is coming to exclude, or I'm sorry, not the passuk of Hebrew Trumas Akachim, that's coming to exclude that she can't eat chazav v'shoik. Maybe it's coming to exclude that she cannot, her father can't be made for her nedarim, right? Normally, if a girl makes a neder, her father, until she gets married, can do ataras nedarim for her. Once she gets married, the husband does it. But maybe in this situation, so now she's going back to live by her father's house. Maybe can the father be mater neder? So no, he can't. So maybe that's what the pasuk's telling you. Not that she can't eat chazav v'shoik. Maybe she can eat chazav v'shoik, but the father can't do ataras nedarim. So Marava Kfar Paska Tanad Rabbi Shmuel. Now with that we already learned. Rabbi Shmuel already taught us that that the father can't do Hataras Nedarim. The Tanad Rabbi Shmuel. It says V'neder Almanu Grusha Yakum Aleh. The neder of an almana and a grusha is going to be. She's going to have to keep that neder. Why? Because she has nobody to. She has nobody to be mater neder. She doesn't have a husband because she's an almana or grusha and she's not in her father's house. So matam eloimer, right? So what does it have to say? She's not a wife, and she's not a wife, and she doesn't have a father, right? It's talking about where the father handed her over to the shluchei abal. Or how about doing a wedding this way, right? Instead of having the chatan kala, each one should just send a shliach. Right, I think you'd save a lot of money on a wedding that way, right? Send the shliach and finish, right? So and then what happened was, so the shluchim did their jobs. Now they're married, and then the guy, the chassan, died in the derech. So what are we going to call that here? Beis Aviya Shalzu, Beis Baila Shalzu. Are we going to say that she's still part of her father's house or part of her husband's house? So what's it going to tell you? Once she goes out of her father's house for an hour, which is what happened here, he can no longer be made for her Nadara. So you see from this Tanat Rabbi Shmuel that we already know that once she's out of her father's house, she's out. He can no longer be mater another, even if it's just for an hour, right? So therefore, it can't be that the pasuk's coming to tell us that there's no ataras nadar. Fine. Rav Saba, now we have three more. So we have so far two sources for pesukim that the woman that goes back to her father's house cannot eat chazav v'shoik. She can only eat terumah. So we have three more. Rav Saba Amar milechem Aviya toichal. She can eat from the lechem of her father. Lechem v'loy basar. She can only eat meat, but not basar. Right? Because truma is only truma doesn't come from meat. What are you saying?
The meat and basar. You mean bread.
I said meat and basar? Sorry. Yeah. Because I'm like parrots. I don't like to even say the word bread. But okay, it's lechem v'loy basar. This is the opposite of although parrots makes the sourdough, so maybe it's both. But anyway, so lechem v'loy basar. So she's allowed to eat bread and no meat. Rapapa Amar mi lechem avia toichel, from the passuk mi lechem avia toichel, lechem akoni la'avia. It's lechem that's purchased, literally means purchased by the father, which is truma, because the truma becomes his. Prat lechazav v'shoik, and the chazav v'shoik, the part of the animal, the what do you call it, the breast and the thigh, the meshulchan gavaya gazahu, it's not his. Just Hashem's table lets a kohen eat it. So that she's not allowed, because that doesn't really belong to her father. I don't get what the difference is between Rav Saf and Rav Papa. They're dashing the same passuk, they're just dashing it in a different way. Right? Okay. Because Rav Saf says lechem and not basar. Okay. And Rav Papa is saying that it's only what belongs to him. But it's essentially saying the same things from the same passuk. Right?
See, do they care what they actually did, or they don't care? They're just saying svaras. This is after the end of the Mikdash, so this must have come up, no? Or they're just planning for Baya Shlishi. What?
You mean, why are they arguing this?
I mean,
Look, yeah.
I mean, they could argue Shitas, but it's like it's weird. It's like
You're right.
What did they do? Why did they look up and say what did they do 200 years ago when they had the Mikdash?
So that's the age-old question, right?
Yeah, I know. I asked this. I know.
No, not your kasha. This is the big, Kiruv question. What did the Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam do for tefillin? What did the whole world do for tefillin before Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam came along? Right. It's that right. It's that same type of kasha.
They never found an old pair of Rabbeinu Tam.
I think they do claim that they found an old pair. No, didn't they say they once found it in the Dead Sea Scrolls or something?
I heard a story once that they found like some chashav gadol buried, and in there was tefillin was buried with him, and it was a pair of Rashi tefillin.
Oh, right. No,
that was a raya. That was a raya that Rashi was the original Girsa, but then the people that hold Rabbeinu Tosa says no, it was in Geniza.
Right, Taka, right. That's a real thing, by the way. It's not a joke. I forgot. It's in I think the Bach brings it. Somebody in the tour brings it. Yeah.
The what?
It's Givaldic. It's a Givaldic thing. No, they found what Avi is saying, that they found an old pair of tefillin. I think either Bach or the Drisha or the Prisha brings it. They found an old pair of tefillin that was Rashi's ksav. So they said, you see, it's a raya that it's Rashi, that the right tefillin is the correct tefillin is Rashi. And then I forgot who says back that no, the reason why it was in Geniza is because it was Rashi tefillin. Right? You like that, sir?
That's why it was buried.
Yeah. Anyways, very good. So then Rava has a third shot. Right, the chazav v'shoik, you should eat it, and your kids, and your sons, and your daughters with you. You can only eat the chazav v'shoik when they're with you, meaning once they leave your house, then they can no longer eat the chazav v'shoik. Okay, again, I don't see how you see that from the pasuk, but it's a drasha. So what are we going to do? Fine. Meaning itcha can mean she's with you, she's back with you, no? So why can't she have the chazav v'shoik? So we're learning out that no, itcha means when she's with you, the initial with you. Once she's out, she's out. Okay.
And the itcha is not going on banecha?
It says bisman she'itcha. right? It has to means going on
No, I'm saying the word in the passuk, the itcha, says ata ubanecha b'nei secha itcha.
Right.
So the itcha is also applies to banecha.
I would think.
So does
Means
that
so
mean
why don't
we're
the boys?
yeah?
No, because
As soon
they
as
have
he's
their own
not-
house. They have their own house, a kohen.
So he can't eat his father's now.
I think he could let them have it, Mustama. No,
He can't. The daughter can't.
the daughter can't because she left.
And the son
That
left
means the son
also.
also
As long
left.
as
I hear.
yeah.
I don't know. Okay, weiter. Now we have a different din, a little twist on this. That there is a scenario where the woman can eat chaz v'shoik. When she goes back to her father's house after her husband dies or her husband gets divorced or she gets divorced, chazeres l'truma, she goes back to truma ve'en chazeres l'chaz v'shoik. But b'shvil b'na, but a bas Yisroel who got married to a kohen, and the kohen died, and she has a son, then she's still allowed to eat chaz v'shoik. After chaz v'shoik, she can go back even to chaz v'shoik. You hear, it's another confusing thing. If the woman goes back to her father's house, if she's a bas kohen, she cannot eat chaz v'shoik. But if she's eating terumah, if she's a bas Yisroel who married a kohen, and she has a son who's a kohen, then she is allowed to. Then she gets married to somebody else, and she can't eat terumah anymore. Then that husband dies. Then she goes back to because of her son. As long as she's eating the terumah because of her son, she's allowed to have chaz v'shoik. Right, so also Rav Mordechai, Amar l'shmaitza kameder Rav Ashi, he said this whole thing in front of Rav Ashi. Amar, he said, Mehecha kamis Rabia, where are you getting that riboy from? Where are you including her in? May from the word may ubas. Mi adifa lamina. So is a woman who has a son that's a kohen any more or chashuv than a bas kohen who went back to her father's house? Right, so why is one different than the other? So the answer is hasam ksivi miuta, hachalek ksivi miuta. No, there, right, by the kohen's daughter, there's a miyut. The Torah writes words that exclude something, and so that excludes her. Hachalek ksivi miuta, but by the kohen's mother, that when the bas Yisrael has a son who's a kohen, and she's mothered in, I guess not grandmothered in, but she's mothered in because she has a son who's a kohen. So therefore, it doesn't say any miyutim there. So therefore, she's not only is she allowed to have truma, she could even have chaz v'shoik. Fine.
Why can't it be the reason that if the son, the son has more right because he's a kohen?
The son is a kohen.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Now here we go. Get ready. Now we're gonna have about 6 vchomers. I'm gonna try. We're gonna try and explain it as well as I can. If I make a mistake, please let me know, because any little slight nuance here can change the whole thing. It becomes azat cholent. But we'll first let's do a few lines and then we'll so bas kohen shenisas the Yisroel. So we said if a bas kohen marries a Yisroel, so she can't eat truma anymore. Right, but if he dies, but she has a kid that from the Yisroel, she's still not allowed to eat truma, right? So Tana Rabbanan, v'shovel beis Aviya, when she goes back to her father's house, prat l'shemeres yavam, that excludes a woman who's waiting for yibum. Meaning, if you have a bas kohen, she married a Yisroel, right? And that Yisroel died, so she's waiting for yibum. So even though she could get chalitza and she can be going back to her father's house, and she's not married now, so she's really in her father's house. No, but since she's waiting for yibum, there's still an attachment. I hate to bring up the word zika, but there's still a zika to a Yisrael. So therefore she's not allowed to eat truma, even if she has no kids. And then kinu re'ah, if she goes back to her father like when she was young, prat lemuberes, it comes to exclude a woman who's pregnant. Meaning, if she's pregnant, a bas kohen who's pregnant from Yisrael, even though that fetus is not viable yet. Yes, that is a shameless plug for the subject of Shavuos night Bez Hashem, because I know really it comes up. It's going to come up here. There's quite a few sources from Yevamos that it comes up. But yes, you think she's a Beres, so she's pregnant. She doesn't have a kid yet. So the passuk's telling you no. Kinora is telling you that that she cannot go back to her father's house because she has a fetus inside her. even if it wasn't born. Right? So the Gemara asks now, V'aloi dinhu, why do you need pesukim for this? It should be a vchomer that she can't eat truma if she's pregnant. Why? Because now, okay, let's read the vchomer and then we'll try and explain it. If you have a place where the child from the first wife does not help out as a child from the second wife, the pajam and a yibum, to make you potter from yibum, also if it also uber kiyulud, but it makes a pregnant woman as if she had a baby, right? Malkam sha'asa vlad min arishan kivlad min hasheni. So a place where the vlad from the first one does make a vlad min hasheni, lepaislam min truma, to make a puzzle in truma, and it didn't shanasa uber kiyulud. Wouldn't be a vchomer that it makes an over like it's born. So basically, what we're going to have here, and I think if we get this basic yisoid, then these vchomers are relatively understandable. There's similarities between the yibum and the truma, right? By yibum, if she's married to a man, and she has a kid from the man, right? And then she gets divorced. So she has a kid from her first marriage. Then she gets married to somebody else, and no kid. Right? And the guy dies without a kid. So now she needs yibum because it goes with the man. The man does not have kids. Even though she has a kid from her first husband, that's obviously not enough because we have to make him the name of the man, and the man doesn't have a kid. It's somebody else's kid, right? So it doesn't help to have another kid. But by truma, having that other kid prevents her from eating truma. Meaning by the case of yibum, that first kid from the marriage doesn't change anything, doesn't help. And by truma, the first kid does change something. Since she still has a kid from the other marriage, that prevents her from eating truma, right? And the same thing that when she's pregnant, there's no yibum done because she's pregnant with a kid, right? And when there's truma, to eat truma, also being pregnant doesn't let her eat truma. So that what the Gemara is saying is that by yibum, what's the kavacher? By yibum, where she has a kid from the first husband, does not pater the yibum for the second husband, right? But if she's pregnant, we look at the fetus as if it's alive. So in a place where the vlad from the first husband is the equivalent of the vlad from the second to make her not eat truma, so shouldn't it be a kavacher that if she's pregnant, it's as if she had a baby and she shouldn't be able to eat truma? Right? So that's what the Gemara is saying. So therefore, you don't need a passuk to tell you, we don't need the passuk kinurel to tell you that a woman cannot eat truma as long as she's pregnant. If she's pregnant with a Yisroel. So the Gemara says, no, that's not a kavachomer. Mali also uber kiyolid in yibum, right? What you can't compare an uber that's like a baby for yibum, sharei asam mesim kachayim, right? Because there, by yibum, we make dead people as if they're alive. Why? Because let's say a man dies and he has a child, so they don't need yibum, right? But then the child dies, right? You have a standard case. A couple has one kid, and then the husband dies. Does he need yibum? No, because he has a kid. But then the kid dies. Does he need yibum? Oh, there's no kids. So no, you do not need yibum, which the Gemara is going to say on Amud Beis why they don't need yibum. But the bottom line is you don't need yibum. So that means that child is even though he's dead, is looked at as if he's alive, right? Because if we look at him like he's dead, she would need yibum. So anyway, so nasa uber kiyulud in truma, right? So are we going to make an uber like a yilud for truma? Shaloi osam mesim kachayim, that we're not going to make mesim b'chayim, because by truma we don't look at the kid dies. We don't look at the kid as if he's still alive, and she could go back to eating truma. So therefore, it's not a kal v'chomer. So tamalam kinurel.
Is that stama bercha?
So that's why we say the word nurel to tell. We need the passuk nurel to tell us that a pregnant woman who's pregnant with a bas kohen who's pregnant cannot go, even when she goes back to her father's house because her husband died. She cannot eat truma. What are you saying?
Is this loyas mason kechayim business? Stama pircha like a regular pircha, or is it saying that an uber is not considered chay?
What are you saying?
This loyas mason kechayim.
Yeah.
You'll have
It's
to
not
tune
really
in
how-
Motzi Shabbos, Gershon.
The next
Halabai.
one is
Is
Yeah.
loyas mason kechayim mean we're comparing it to uber? Is we trying to say that uber is loy chay?
no, I'm not so sure that's what it's saying.
Just a regular pircha, a pircha kaldahu for kal v'chomer.
Yeah, that's what I think. No. Anyways, okay, so let's divide it. So we need to passuk to tell us that a mu'beres, that if she's mu'beres, right, that and to tell us that if she's pregnant, she's not allowed to eat terumah. And we also need the passuk to say that she has no kids, so she could go back to her father's house, right? The ikas of Rahman of v'zera, because if the passuk would just say she doesn't have kids, so therefore she can go eat terumah by her father's house. Meikara chad gufa, because in the beginning she was one body, v'hashta trei gufi, and now she's two because she had a baby. But a pregnant woman, meikara chad gufa. In the beginning she was one guf, v'hashta chad gufa, and now she's one guf, right? Because she's still pregnant. She's one body, ema techel. So then I would say maybe she's allowed to eat terumah because she left her father's house as one body and she still is one body because she is pregnant. She didn't have the baby. So tzricha, that's why you need it, which is very interesting because I've been handling this for the last few days with the abortion. Part of the whole shiloh with an abortion is this fetus a separate entity when it's in utero, right? If it is meaning, is it a separate entity or is not a separate entity, or not? So this Gemara clearly sounds like it's not a separate entity, right? It's just part of the mother. So how can you say somebody's chayav misa if you're a retzeach if you kill a fetus if it's no different than the arm? I'm saying you're not going to get the tzaddik of the year award, but you can't say you're a retzeach, right? Okay, whatever. Because
she would be chayvul ba'atzma.
Yeah.
Which is also this is deraisa.
Correct. That's what some say, but not ritzeach like Ramosha says.
No. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Fine. Because of Rahmana Muberes, this is not in the Maramakomis list, this stuff, but it's because whatever, there's enough. But because of Rahmana Muberes, and if the Torah would have just written Muberes, to make her a gufa, because in the beginning she was a guf, now on Talmud Beis, gufa srika, she was an empty body. V'hashta gufa malya. Now she's a full body. Aval zera einla. But if she doesn't have kids, the meikara gufa srika, v'hashta gufa srika, she left her father's house empty and she came back empty. Eimaloi. So I would say that because meaning she came back empty, but she has a kid, but she's still empty. So I would say maybe not, and she would be allowed to eat terumah. So tzricha, that's what you need both.
You understand that Avamina?
Do I understand that? If you're looking at the body or you're looking at the fetus? You're looking at the child. I mean, what is this woman right now?
But the fetus is determining what's the fetus, what the offspring is.
Yeah. I don't know. So it's a child. You look at the body. She left as a whole body, and she came back as a whole body. Right? Fine. Anyways, so now we have 4 kal v'chomers back and forth trying to prove all these things, meaning that maybe Uber should protect her and pater her from terumah, or maybe it shouldn't, and maybe having a son from a previous marriage should help for no yibum. All these kal v'chomers back and forth. So Simon, Amar lei, this is all Simonim. Amar lei loy nasa v'nasa b'misa, nasa v'loy nasa b'vlad, yibum v'truma, Simon. Okay, so those are all Simona what's coming up. So Amar Le, Rabbi Yehuda may iskarta l'Rava. So Rabbi Yehuda iskarta said to Rava, Loi nasa mesim kachayim l'niyivim mekal v'chomer. Why don't we say that mesim shouldn't be like living for yibum for kal v'chomer? Meaning, we said that if again a woman gets married and has a kid, then her husband dies or gets divorced, and she marries another man, and that man dies without them having kids. So she needs yibum, even though she has a child. He didn't have a child, so therefore she needs yibum. So now the Gemara is going to try prove from a kal v'chomer that maybe that should pater, right? I'm sorry, wrong case. I already got confused, right? If she gets married and she has a kid, and then her husband dies, they don't need yibum. But then the child dies after the husband dies. Now the husband Nebuch doesn't have any yotzei chalotzav. He doesn't have any kids. So maybe now she should need yibum, right? So we said no, she does not need yibum. So he's trying to learn from kal v'chomer that maybe she should. Right? In a place where they made the vlad from the first husband, like a vlad from the second husband, lepaisam and a terumah, like we've been saying, if she has a kid from another marriage, that will prevent her from eating terumah until that kid dies. She can't eat terumah. But a dead kid is not like a live kid, meaning once the kid dies, we don't look at the kid and say that, oh, since she couldn't eat terumah when the kid was alive, so even after the kid dies, she can't eat terumah. So so in a place by yibum where we don't say the vlad from Rishon is v'sheni lefajim and a yibum to make a pater for yibum, that's the case where if she had a kid from a previous marriage, it doesn't pater the second marriage from yibum. Ein din isn't a vchomer shaloi nasa mesim kachayim, that we should not make the mesim like chayim, and therefore she should need yibum, or chalitza, right? So basically, what the Gemara is saying in kal v'chomer is, you have this woman, she had a kid, then her husband dies, then the kid dies. So Gemara wants to say that she's going to have to get chalitza, meaning let's say she's remarried to somebody. All of a sudden, she gets a knock on the door and says, "By the way, your wife needs chalitza," right? Well, you know what kind of ruckus that's going to make, right? But that's what the Gemara wants to say in the kal v'chomer. The Gemara answers, Hashem. Hashem wants everything to be sweet and everything should be peaceful. And if you're going to all of a sudden tell a woman that she needs to get chalitza, and she's, and her husband sees that she needs chalitza, it's going to throw him off and say, one second, am I married to an Ashes Ish here? How can I need chalitza? And it causes also shalom bayis issues. Hashem doesn't want that. So therefore, you may have a kal v'chomer, but the pasuk negates it.
So you bring mavato, and din deraisa for derechad achinai.
Mavato a din deraisa. It's not a din deraisa. Well, we don't know what it is. You're trying to learn something out from a kal v'chomer.
What is it then? What is it?
It's a kal v'chomer that we want to learn that out. That she should need chalitza.
What exactly is the case, Rabbi Yaakov? This case,
the case that we want to learn out the din.
Yeah.
She got married to a man. They had a child. The man died.
Right.
No problem. No yibum. He has a kid.
Right.
Then the kid dies. Does she now need yibum from her brother-in-law? Because now her husband doesn't have kids.
But she's married to somebody else, or she's not married to somebody else?
She got married to somebody else. Yeah,
that's the key to the case. Well, her husband died,
right,
and she had a child, so therefore she got married without yibum, because her husband had a zera. That's what the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Does not need yibum, right?
Right.
Can't hear you. Very, very faint, Rebbeinu.
Then the child never died.
Correct.
So she needs yibum now?
That's the shayla. That's what the Gemara wants to say, that she needs yibum or chalitza, even though she's married.
Since she was exempt.
One second.
Yeah.
Didn't we have that if somebody has it and later he doesn't have to have yibum? He doesn't have to have more children?
Correct.
So I don't understand the case.
No, in a chanami, really, that's going to be the din. But the Gemara is trying to say from this vchomer that you should need yibum or chalitza.
Why?
But since they had a child already, wasn't he? She was exempt from all these things. From yibum.
No, but that's what
they
the
had
Gemara
a
is
child.
learning
Then
out
the child died. Okay, what could you do?
Correct.
Which is, you don't back up.
You're right. But the Gemara is saying, but if you balance it with a vchomer from terumah, then she should need it. That's what the Gemara is saying, from a vchomer. Because if by terumah, where the first husband, the child from a first marriage doesn't affect the husband from the second marriage, right? Yet a person, the kid who's dead, is considered like he's alive, right? Meaning by terumah, the kid who's dead is looked at by he's alive, and the first husband, the first child from the first marriage doesn't affect the second marriage. So therefore, by yibum, the first child, by terumah, the first child affects the second marriage, and she's not allowed to eat terumah, right? Even though the kid's from a different marriage. So what's shaykhus, right? Because since he has a Yisroel from another marriage, she's not allowed to eat terumah till that kid dies, right? But by yibum, it does affect it. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. By terumah, it affects it. A child from a different husband affects her eating terumah. By yibum, a child from a different husband does not affect yibum. She's still going to need yibum, right? But by the case of terumah,
we want to say she needs yibum.
No. In the case, there's two different cases by yibum. There's a case where she was married to a first husband, had a kid, then he died. She got married to another husband who died without a kid. So that first kid from her first marriage obviously has nothing to do with her second marriage, and
right.
he's gonna need to yibum.
Right.
But by terumah, in the same scenario, her having a kid from a different marriage prevents her from eating terumah.
Okay, but how could you bring a vchomer?
One second. So that means that. So one second. So yibum is more chomer, right? Right. It's more chomer, and it passels her from eating terumah. But there, if the kid dies, we don't look at the kid like he's alive and she still can't eat terumah. If the kid dies, she can start eating terumah, right? So we look at the kid that's dead. That's like as if he's dead, he's not alive. So if you're doing it by terumah, then by yibum, for sure you have to do that, right? And you have to look at the kid that's dead as that he's not alive, as if he's dead, and as if he didn't exist, and therefore she now has a husband who died without a kid. I'm not saying that this is again, none of these vchomers do I think the Gemara really thinks that we're going to go with. Sometimes the Gemara, especially in Yevamos, it seems like we had it a lot. The Gemara says these wild vchomers that we know can't be true based on the pesukim. But the Gemara just thinking that maybe you should be able to say a vchomer, that this is one of them. Right? So that's what the Gemara says. And therefore, we cannot possibly allow her to get chalitza when she's remarried to another husband. That's all. It's going to cause real strife in the shalom bayis.
To me, it's another reason not to, because she can't do yibum, right?
Right. Well, if she's single, she could do yibum.
No, but she's married. That's not the case. The case is she's married, so she can't do
yibum.
So she can't do yibum.
Yeah.
So the yibum doesn't start. So there shouldn't be any chalitza.
And if you go with all what we learned, Baruch Hashem, then we could say this vchomer doesn't start. But the Gemara is still trying to say that vchomer could potentially work. That's all. Even though be'etzim, I don't think there was ever any havamina that would really work. It can't, for all the kashas that the Olam is saying. Anyway, so then we do another vchomer. Then the Gemara says, okay, v'nasa mesim kachayim l'nichuma. So why don't we say that a kid who's dead by terumah is considered alive, and then even after the kid dies, she should still be puzzled to eat terumah. Why? If in a place where the vlad from the rishon is not like the vlad from Sheni Lepajim and a yibum to Padim Yibum, meaning if she got as a kid from a first marriage, before she has the second marriage, the husband dies without kids, we say that the first kid has no shaykhus, also mesim kachayim, but we do make a dead kid like he's alive, meaning even though in another case of yibum, where the kid dies after the husband dies, we don't make her have yibum or chalitza. So makam shas of vlad ben arishan kavlad ben asheni. So in a makam where we do say the vlad from the first is like as if it's a vlad from the second, where lepaisim and achuma the chuma and it din shenasa mesim kachayim. Shouldn't it be a vchomer that even though the kid is dead, we should look at the kid like he's alive, and therefore, once a bas kohen has a kid from a Yisroel, even after the kid dies, she shouldn't be able to eat terumah. Vezr'a ein la, v'ha ein la. Right? She doesn't have kids. It says vezr'a ein la. She can go back to eat terumah by her father, and she doesn't have kids. Right? Even though she did have a kid, she doesn't have kids. Fine. Third complaint. Why don't we say that we take the vlad from the first one, like the vlad from the second one, for yibum, right? Meaning that is also wild. Who could possibly think this havamina? Again, in this case, she's married to a guy. She has a kid. She gets divorced. Let's keep it simple. She gets divorced. She then gets married to another guy, doesn't have kids, and he dies, right? So do we say that she doesn't need yibum because she has a kid from a previous marriage? Obviously not, right? That can't be. What shaykhus does have the husband? So Gemara is going to try now and say from a vchomer, no, her kid from her previous marriage should pater her from yibum, which is also wild. Why would you, why would you think that? But the Gemara is saying, well, if you go with the rules of vchomer, you might be able to say that. What's the vchomer? If in a place that you don't make mason like chayim, in terumah, meaning once the kid dies, the mother can go back to the father's house. So we don't say, oh, the kid is still alive. Also, vlad ben arishan, vlad ben asheni, and you say that the vlad from the first is like the vlad from the second, and therefore, if there's a kid from a previous marriage, she's now allowed to eat terumah. Malkum shasa mesim kachayim. So in a place where we make mesim kachayim, linin yibum, right? Meaning we say by yibum, we say that if the husband dies and then the kid dies, we look at him as if he's still alive, and that's why she doesn't need yibum. So why shouldn't we say that the vlad from her first marriage should make it that as if that works for the vlad from the second marriage, and she shouldn't need yibum, even though her husband never had kids? Right? He didn't have any kids, and he doesn't have any kids. The kid that's around is from the wife's first marriage. Meaning these are vchomers that I don't really think. I don't know enough about the history of Gemara, but I don't think the Gemara really entertained the thought that these vchomers should really work, because they're too out there. Fine. Then the fourth and final one. Right? The next parak is gishmak. I mean, the next parak is gets wild with the nemonos and stuff. But a few more lines. You got the lachaims ready? Yeah, fine. There we go. Okay. Why don't we maybe say?
That looks like tea to me.
I'm undercover.
Very good. That went right over my head. Fine.
I'm using a tea glass. Yeah.
I know.
I see that. I figured that out.
You remember from the Zayt the Cone. Very good.
Yeah.
But hold it. No, parrots. Hold it this way. No. Don't hold the handle this way. No, don't. Hold it.
That's what Aaron said.
Like a lid.
He said it looks like tea.
You don't even know how to do it.
He never had a tea in his life.
The last time I did it, I actually put a tea bag in the hot cup with the plastic cup with the scotch inside it. So in case anybody.
That's good. Don't, parents, pick up the cup. Don't hold the handle. Hold your thumb on the top and this finger on the bottom, like it's hot. Hold it like it's hot. Yeah.
There you go.
Ravon, just for the record, if I would do that, I would get yelled at.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
I sense a discrimination suit brewing.
Listen, I'll just explain what Peretz is coming from here. Okay. As a brother, I know exactly what he means. when I came to my wife and I said, boy, Shayosha, looks like there's going to be a rock concert. I said, I just got to be there expecting a few thousand people. She says, a few thousand people on Erev Yontif? I said, 100%. They're all looking to get out. Okay.
Naftali, now because you said again, Naftali, your wife is hearing of Waxman should live and be well, and somebody else in the Shia, their mother-in-law is selling art paintings. My wife is Baruch Hashem is upstairs putting together 50 potato blintzes, okay? Homemade blintzes.
Remember, disclaimer, somebody's mother-in-law and stepmother-in-law.
Mother-in-law's.
I didn't want to make it too obvious. I didn't want to make it too obvious.
Fleischige potato blintzes.
Yeah.
No.
Like...
Only for Kiddush, Rabbeinu, it's only for Kiddush. Don't worry.
No, we gotta make a l'chaim here. Let's go. Alcohol evaporates.
We're just waiting for his l'chaim to cool off. That's all. Anyway, fine. So last vchomer. Yeah, I think you need a drink after these vchomers talking. Fine. Last vchomer. V'loy nasav vlad min harishon kevlad min hasheni l'truma mikavchomer. So let's say that the vlad from harishon should not be vlad hasheni to the truma from kavchomer. Meaning, now the kavchomer wants to say that, again, we kept saying that as long as she has a child from a different marriage, she cannot eat truma. So let's take a kavchomer that she could eat truma. But in a place that we said that dead people are like live, meaning the kid, by yibum, even though he died, we look at him like he's alive, and therefore his mother does not need yibum, the pajam and a yibum, to make a pajam and yibum. But the vlad from the first marriage is not like the vlad from the second marriage, right? And they would need yibum in that case. So makom shaloyasa mesim kachayim, in a place where we didn't make mesim kachayim, linyan truma, by truma, right? We said if the kid dies, the mother can go back. We don't look at the kid like he's still alive, but by yibum we do. Shouldn't it be a vchomer that we should not make the vlad from the first marriage like the vlad of the second marriage, and therefore the woman should be able to eat truma even though she has a kid in another marriage. So Tamaloimer ain't law. It has to be she has no kids. She can eat truma from her father's house, but she had no kids. And she does have. So therefore the pesukim knock out all the vchomer. So that's the bottom line from all these rules. You can say vchomer from today till tomorrow. The pesukim knock out the vchomer. Fine. Hadron aloch yesh mutaris. L'chaim. I also have that orange color. Yeah. Fine.
Oh, it's hot.
Yeah. Fine. This next parak is all about agunas, right? So basically, when a woman back then, the chacham were very makel, and then nowadays too. You try and pull out every kula in the book to make it that a woman can get remarried, right? So
the parak teaches you how to beat the guy up.
No, that's no, that we're not holding by that. That's you have to wait for gittin for that. But here we're talking about where the husband goes overseas and you have no idea if he's coming back. So you can take there's eid echad, there's shnei eidim, there's with bezdin, without bezdin, all sorts of things. So ha'isha, sag the Mishnah, yeah. So ha'isha shahalach ba'ila Medina Sayam. Her husband went to Medina Sayam. He went on a trip. And they come and they tell her that your husband died. Now it's even here. This is for Gershon. Here, even though it's plural, right? Rashi says it means eid echad. Doesn't mean two eidim came, because it can make a big difference if two eidim came and one eid came. So here we're talking about where, even though it says plural, it's talking about an eid echad came, and she went to Bezdin, and Bezdin mattered her based on this one eid. Venisis, she got married. V'achakach ba'ila, and then of course she got married and comes marching in her husband. So what's her din now? So the second marriage is not really a marriage because she was an Eishes Ish, right? But what about the first marriage? So she has to get divorced. She has to go out from both, and she needs a get from both. Now the chiddush with that is, and we see this in the Gemara, is that the second marriage is not a marriage. You can go be Makadash and Eishes Ish, meaningless. So she goes out to let her just leave that husband. No, but she needs a get, which we're going to see why. Vein look ksuba, she does not get her ksuba money. I mean, she's a real loser. She's out. But like Paris, she doesn't get her Paris back. She doesn't get fed. And her worn out clothing, the clothing that the husband wore out, she doesn't get that. Not from the first husband, not from the second husband. She gets totally high and dry. And if she did take from the husband, she got to give it back. And if she had kids from the second husband, the kids are mamzerim. And if she went back to the first husband after this happened, and she has a kid, also a mamzer. And they can't, if they're kohanim and she dies, they cannot go to the funeral. Can
she sue that aid?
Yeah, I would think that that age should be yes. I don't know what happens to that age.
Wasn't Bezdin matter?
Yes, Bezdin was matter, but Bezdin was matter up here.
So it's Bezdin's fault, not the women's fault.
Correct. So we're going to see it. We're going to see in the Gemara.
She can't collect the ksuba. She can't do it. She's getting a class.
Yeah. So over the next few blocks, we're going to see all this.
We already had this a couple times in Yevamos. The reason there's a chazaka that she looks into it.
Right.
The Bezdin rely on in order to be matzah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We'll see. Let's see how this goes. Yeah.
So now she's suing her private eye also. You're saying besides the aid.
You got to sue everybody.
The private eye is the guy who she slept with, but okay.
The parrots. The Gemara is going to say that tomorrow's daf that she married one of the Adam. So okay, so right, you could have written your vomers, parrots. Right, the
we know that just with his family.
That's true. Right, so and the husbands don't get, if she finds something, the husbands don't get it. And if she does work, normally the husband gets to keep it. He can't. If she makes a nether, the husbands are not made for it. If she was a bas Yisroel, she is now puzzle from the kahuna. She cannot marry a kohen because she's considered a zaina. Ubas levi min a meiser. If she's a bas levi, she's not allowed to eat meiser. Ubas kohen min a truma. If she's a bas kohen, she can't eat truma anymore. Vein yarshin shalzeh, yarshin shalzeh, yarshin is ksubasa. And the yarshim don't get her ksuba, which the obvious question, we just said she gets no ksuba. So what are they yarshining? That we'll see in the Gemara. And if they die, meaning if the husbands die, there's no yibum, but there's only chalitza, which we'll see in the Gemara too. Now that's the Tanakama. Now the Gemara brings three Tanaim who disagree with parts of what was just said. Wait,
yeah. The original case was
correct.
And what happened? She was mutter l'shuk.
Correct.
So now, what does it mean? There obviously are kids here.
What? No.
There have to be kids here before, otherwise she would have been yibum v'chalitza. She wouldn't have been muteris l'shuk.
I mean, how is it that she went?
As the mother to marry out.
I mean, if she didn't have a kid from the first one,
maybe the parents had kids afterwards. There were no kids.
No, right. But that's usher. She can't go back to him.
What? The first husband had no siblings, and he died. And his parents went and had
that he does.
He had a sibling after she married another person.
That would be.
No, he's saying the kids. How did she ever get married?
That's what
Gershon
parents are saying.
No. I mean, she never had any. No, right.
Gershon's asking that if there was brothers, how could she ever marry somebody else?
There was no brothers when she married the second person. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
That's one. That could be a shot. I hear that. Right. I think Gershon, we never got down to it. Like, what happens? What's her status? We always weren't sure about that. Right. Okay, whatever it is. So we're gonna go with that teretz. So very good. So, but now Rabbi Yossi and we're gonna see a few that disagree. Rabbi Yossi and ksubasa al nichse baila harishan. He disagrees. He says she gets the ksuba from the first husband, right? We'll see this in the Gemara why. Rabbi Lazar Omer Harishon Zaka b'Mitziyasa u'Maisiyadeh v'Faras Nadeh. Rabbi Lazar says that the first husband gets the Mitzias and Maisiyadeh and can be made for Nadarim. And Rabbi Shimon Omer B'Yasoi Chalitzasa me'achav Sharishon Pateres Tzarasa. That there could be Bia or Chalitza to the first husband, right? And it will pater her tzara. Now the Gemara is going to discuss, and then he says, "Ve'en avlad mimena mamzer," and the vlad is not a mamzer, right? Now the Gemara is going to discuss: do all these three shittas disagree with each other, or agree with each other, and which way do you look at it? Fine. Vimnis is shaloi b'rishus, but let's say she got married shaloi b'rishus. Now what does that mean? Very tricky. What do you mean shaloi b'rishus? In the first case, it was eid echad. So since it was eid echad, she needed to go to the rabbanim to be mater her, because you can't decide on eid echad to go marry Eisha Sish can't decide to get married based on an eid echad, right? So that's why it was bezdin. Here, two eidim come and say that the husband died. She doesn't need bezdin. Pashut. Vim needs a shaloi b'rishus means without rishus bezdin, she didn't need rishus bezdin because it was two eidim. Then mutera, and then the husband comes marching home. In that case, muteras lachsulei, then she could go back to the husband. Rashi says because she's an aynis. She's plain and simple aynis. She did everything in her power. Two eidim come and say, "We saw your husband dead. You can get married." Oh, something happened. That's not her problem, right? Which is going to be a whole Gemara about this, but that's what the Gemara is saying. So Nisas al pi bezdin. Now the Gemara repeats itself. If she got married al pi bezdin, meaning one aid and bezdin mated her, Teitze, she has to get divorced, upeturim in a carbon, but she doesn't have to bring a carbon. Because again, she was a shaigi, so she should have to bring a carbon, but she doesn't because Bezdin said she's potter. Since Bezdin said it, if you listen to Bezdin, you don't have to bring carbonas, right? If she didn't get married, al pi Bezdin, meaning she had two eidim, then Teitze, she has to go out from the second husband, and she goes back to the first husband. But she's chayav in a carbon because she was a shaygig. Which means that Yafa Koyach Bezdin should put Tajam in a carbon. That Bezdin has the Koyach of Bezdin, even though they botched it because they believe the Eid Echad, but Lamaisa, she's potter from a carbon. Even though her life is ruined now, but she's potter from a carbon, right? Yeah, what do you want to say?
Mutter? Is it mutter to paskin al pi Eidim without waiting for Bezdin? It's mashma here.
Yes. That's from this Gemara. It's Pasha. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they even need interrogation. I don't know how it works.
They wouldn't have if they didn't wait for Bezdin. Just Eidim came along and said.
Yeah. So Hairua Bezdin linase. Now, what happens if Bezdin gave her a heter to get married? V'holcha v'kilkula, and then she went. She didn't get married. She was just mekalkal. She was I don't want to say it's not promiscuous.
What did the Mishnah just add now? The first time it didn't give her a heter?
No, it's all it's adding is carbon. That's all. It's all it's doing is saying the carbonas. So in the last line saying if Bezdin gave her a heter, but instead of going and getting married, she just went and messed around, then chayav is carbon, and then the husband came, then she's chayav in the carbon. Why Bezdin said, "Hey, lady, you have a heter to marry somebody else. You do not have a heter to just go to the bar and party because we say you're not married anymore and you're back to being single, right? That you can't do." Fine.
Why does that make her a shaygig though?
What do you mean?
The difference is shaygig versus einitz. Shaygig brings the carbon, einitz does.
Right.
Something a little different.
So because Tiru Elalinase makes her a shaygig?
Yeah, because it's eid echad. There's only eid echad. So.
No, when Bezdin amater her, the halcha v'kilkula.
Right. I know, but so she's still a shaygig.
But what type of heter is that?
What do you mean?
It's like a partial heter, like you're only allowed to.
Yeah, she's only allowed. Bezdin said we're allowing you to get married. We are not allowing you to be stama, run around. Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
I still don't understand what the chiluk is. They're matter her to another man.
Right.
That's an einus. But it's only an einus if she gets married. If she's not married, it's not a shaykh.
No, it's only we're talking about one aid. We're talking about with this one aid.
But Bezdin amater her to get married. Right?
Yes, but she's a shaygig.
But if she doesn't get married, she's considered a shaygig. If she does get married, she's an einus.
I don't think that's the lumdus.
That's what the chiyuv of carbon is. The chiyuv of carbon is a shaygig.
She's a shaygig all the way around. she's just potter because Bezdin. Only she listened to Bezdin. She didn't listen.
The kilkula is chayiv in carbon.
Because she didn't listen.
Carbon is a shaygig.
Because she didn't listen.
The only chayiv of carbon is b'shaygig. That's when she's chayiv of carbon.
She's chayiv of carbon in both, whether she's married or not. But there's a loophole when Bezdin, she listens to exactly what Bezdin says, and she's potter from a carbon.
Because she's an ainus, not a shaygig.
No, I'm not learning it like that. No. Because there's a special dispensation that when you listen to Bezdin, you can't be chayiv of carbon. That's why I understand it. I don't know if I'm right.
Rashi, the last Rashi is much not like
that. Okay, that could be. Who's looking at Rashi?
Exactly, Gershon. Daf Yomi.
All right, let's go because we didn't even start tomorrow's daf yet. Okay, we got to do 3. Okay, so let's see. The Ketani Sefer. So this it says in the Sefer, Nisas Shaloi B'Reshus Muteras Lachser Loi. If she got married without permission, meaning because she had 2 Eidim, she could go back to her first husband. Shaloi B'Reshus Bezdin Ela Be'Eidim, which means that she did it without permission Bezdin, but she did it with Eidim. M'chlal the Reisha B'Reshus Bezdin. That means the Reisha is talking about where she had Reshus from Bezdin, because the Mishnah doesn't say that, but it has to be that Ube'eid Echad, and it must be talking about an Eid Echad, because if it's 2 Eidim, then what's the problem? Alma Eid Echad Neman. So you see that Eid Echad is Neman. But Tanan Nami Huchzaka Lios Masian Eid Mipi Eid. If she has a chazaka, Huchzaka, it's a chazaka in Klal Yisrael that we will marry a woman off Eid Mipi Eid. Means a guy says, I heard from somebody else that he died. Vishim Pishu even believe a woman. What?
This was very lemaisa after the Holocaust.
Yes, it was, unfortunately. Yes, yeah, it was. And then even with the World Trade Center, people, right. I saw him in the building and all that type of thing. Yeah, 100%. V'isha mipi isha, and woman from a woman. V'isha mipi eved, and mipi shivcha. Meaning all the things that we normally don't believe, we're going to believe. Alma eid echad mehemen. So you see that an eid echad is believed. The Tanan Nami, eid echad oimer achalta chelav. If you have one eid says you ate chelav, which is fats, which is a chi of chorus, and if you did it b'shoigig, you have to bring a chatos, right? So an eid echad says to a guy, you ate chelav. Who amar oimer lo achalta? He says, no, I didn't. Potter. So he's potter. Why is he potter? The reason why he's potter is I didn't eat it. But if he would have been quiet, and a guy says, by the way, what you ate is chelav, then he'd be believed. The one witness we believe would be chayiv. Alma eid echad mehemen. So you see again that an eid echad is believed. So midaraisa minolan. How do we know that eid echad is believed? The Tanya, because we learned it in the Brisa. It says oihoida love chatasa. If he gets to find out about his chatas, not that others make him know about it, meaning he has to own up to it. He has to find out on his own, however way he finds out, but he has to know that he did something b'shayg in order to be chayav chatas. So you would think, even if he doesn't fight it, he should be potter, right? Because he needs to be him. It has to be coming from him, not from he. The shogig has to be coming from him, not from others. Meaning, as long as he knows about it, whether he knows about it from himself and he realized his mistake, or somebody else told him about the mistake, it's a problem. So he has to bring the korban. So what's the case? If it's 2 people come and say, by the way, you ate chelav, and he doesn't deny it. Why do you need a passuk to tell that for? Of course, it's 2 Eidim that said he did something wrong, and he doesn't even deny it. It must be talking about one person. And it says, and if he doesn't fight them, he's believed. Right? The guys believe that he ate chelav. So you see that an eid echad is believed. So that's how we know that it's believed. So the Gemara asks us long kash on this. Who says that he's believed because who says it's because they're believed and that's why he brings a chatas, right? Maybe the reason why he's bringing a chatas because he was quiet. Right? Famous line. When you tell somebody that you did this and he's quiet, so that means the reason why he's quiet because it must be that he agreed. Teda, the Katani Seifa, meaning not, and then he's not believe he's bringing a korban not because of Eid Echad, he's bringing a korban because he agreed. Teda, the Katani Seifa, the Seifa says, Amru Shnayim achad chelav. 2 people came to a guy and said, you ate chelav. Who amar He says, I did not. Potter, he's potter. Right? So his word against two Edom. Rameir Mechayev. Rameir says he's chayev. Why? Because I'm Rameir, vchomer. Rameir says it's a vchomer. If two Edom come and tell the guy, by the way, you killed somebody, and he denies it, but the two Edom say it, and they go through the whole interrogation, and they're right. They'll be mechayev misa. Lo yividu lidei korban akal. Are they not going to be mechayev somebody a korban that's kal? Of course they are. Right, so that's what Meir says he would be chayav a korban. Amrulai, they said to him, no, he has a migu, because mam yirtzalaimer mezari. You see, the guy could have said when the two people said, you ate chaylev, he could have said, yeah, I did eat chaylev. I didn't know it was chaylev. Right. So, then I'm sorry.
We believe him to say that he's going to make himself a rock.
Yeah, because he has a migo. I'm sorry. They came and said, by the way, buddy, you ate chaylev by mistake. He said, no. And you chayav a korban. And he says to himself, no, I'm not chayav a korban. I did on purpose. Now what are you going to do? He gets out of it, right? Because they didn't give him asra, so he could have answered that. Instead, he denied it. If he wanted to get out of the korban, he could have just said, I did it on purpose. There's no way for Adam to tell whether a guy did it on purpose or mistake. So he could have said, I did it on purpose, but so therefore he's believed. So Reisha on Talmud Aleph now, Reisha, my time of Mechayev Rabbanon. Why in the Reisha were the Rabbanon Mechayev him, even with Eid Echad? Ilaim Mushum de Mehemen, if you're going to say, because Eid Echad is believed, V'hatrei ba'alma, right? Because two people, Afagav de Kamakishlu, even if you deny what they're saying, Inu Mehemni, the Edom are believed for Kapatri Rabbanon, but here the Rabbanon say that he's Potter because he has the Migu, right? Elolav Mishum de Ishtik. It must be the reason why he is Potter is because he's quiet. Ushtika Kaidah Dami, and it's Shtika Kaidah, right? Meaning, so you can't say that the Bryce is talking about Eid Echad because in this situation you're not even believing two Edom, according to the Rabbanon, right? So therefore, it must be shtika to ida. So ela svarahi, it's a svara, right? And there's a major yisoid in kashas right here. Ela svarahi, midi dahava chatifa safik shachela safik shoshuma. Let's say we have a piece of fat. We have no idea if it's shuman, which is kosher, or it's chaylev, which is treif. V'asa idechad v'amar barili the shumanhu. And one guy comes on and says, "I'm telling you that it's fat and it's kosher." The mehemen, he's believed. So therefore, you say the same thing. A guy comes along and says, by the way, this lady's husband died, right? So he's believed. Yeah. So that's what we're learning it from. Now, what we learn out from this, and Rashi says in the third line, just read the Rashi, even though it's late, because it's a very important Rashi. Sorry, Yeshua. It's pashut that when a guy comes along by kashrus and says something that we rely on him, calls man shalei nechshad, as long as he's not chashud, as long as there's no reason to believe that this guy doesn't keep kashrus, we believe him. You can never, if you don't believe on Eid Echad, then nobody would be able to eat by a friend's house. You wouldn't even be able to be samech on the b'nei beisai. Right? So it has to be that Eid Echad is Nama B'Yisurin. Right? That's from this Gemara right here. There's where it's coming from, that Eid Echad is Nama B'Yisurin. Otherwise, you can't function. You can't function. So you can say, okay, so Eid Echad Nama B'Yisurin. So why do we need Achsherim? Right? What do you need Achsherim for?
They have Nemanis. They have the Negiyah.
Oh, so they have negiyas when it comes to money. So the Chachamim, the Rabbanim got together. I don't know how long ago. I forgot how long ago. They got like 150 years ago, something like that. And they said, because of the negiyas of money, therefore, every place needs a hechsher. So a guy tonight asked me, he's got a friend's friend who makes beef jerky that he buys the meat in Gourmet Glatt. Can he trust him? I said, if you know him personally and you trust him, then maybe. But if you don't know him, then
he's selling it.
He's selling it. Yeah, selling it. Giving it is no problem.
Isn't there a restaurant in Eretz Yisrael, Hadar Gul or something? Doesn't
yeah,
have a sign from the Rav or something?
Yeah, they didn't have. I don't know how they got away without a hechsher.
They have a sign from the Rav that the family is 8 generations Yishalmi and trustworthy or something, and that's what they posted. Yeah. That's their hechsher.
I don't know how that works. Or whatever it is, I don't know how it works. Now, Rav Hershel Shechter.
They also don't care that much about money. They give a lot of food away to Aniyan.
Okay, I don't know if that takes away the takana, but okay. But that's
Can't say they're biased.
Right. What do you say, Avi?
Under the Hechsher of Tovia Stein of West Lawrence.
Of the flush Whitestone. But anyway.
West Lawrence.
I heard from Rav Hershel Shechter, which was a gewaldige point on one of the OU things. He said, yes, but you have to know Hilchas Kashrus, right? If you don't know Hilchas Kashrus, you're not an Eid Nema. I mean, I can come say Eid on anything I want to say, but what do I know, right? So it's very nice that you're saying either way, but that's what the Gemara is saying. So since a person's believed on Kashrus, he's also believed on marriage. There's an obvious question on that. Midami, is it similar? There, the chaylev has no chazaka that it's asur. Nobody knows. It's a piece of meat. We have no idea it's kosher, not kosher. This guy comes along and says it's kosher. Right? The Eishes Ish. Here, she has a chazaka. She's a Eishes Ish. Right? We know that anything having to do with erva can have no less than 2. So it can't work here. So what is it? So the Gemara says, the vadei chaylev. It's more similar to a case that a chaticha that's vadai treif, and a guy comes along and says, "V'amar barili the shuman who hava that this is shuman." Of course, the loy mehemen. We're not going to believe him, right? So Gemara says, right? So Gemara says, "Mi dami." No, that's not a kasha. Hasam afilu asu bei meya loy mehemen. If you have a piece of treif from McDonald's sitting there on the table, and 100 Adam come in and say, "That's not from McDonald's. That's from I don't know. That's from Burger Bar." Right? They're not going to be believed. But here, if 2 people would come along and say this lady's husband died overseas, we'd believe him. So one would also be believed. Midi dahava tevel, hektish, and koinomas. Similar to the case of tevel, hektish, and koinomas. Now, tevel, hektish, and koinomas is basically a guy comes and testifies that this person took off truma. Tevel is the grain that truma and mises wasn't taken off of, like we saw yesterday's daf. So one guy comes along and says, by the way, I know this guy took it off, right? So he'd be believed. And hektish also, this guy made something hektish and then he was paid it. He'd also be believed. But koinomas is also a similar vow, right? He makes a vow, koinomas, stuff from kol nidre, right? That he's making something kaddish. So, but if somebody testifies and says, by the way, he bought it back from the Beis HaMikdash, so he's believed, right? So now the Gemara says, but those cases don't work. Hi tevel, hey chidomi. What's the case of tevel? If it's his own tevel, he's believed because he could have just fixed it. Why would he lie? Let him just take off the chumas and maisis. Ela da'acher must be talking about somebody else. He's testifying about somebody else's grain that chumas and maisis are taken off. So Micah Sover, what's the svara? Can somebody take? Meaning there's a machlokes whether somebody's allowed. Am I allowed to go take chumas and maisis off from my friend? If he says you could take truma from for his friend. I can go take off truma and my stuff for my friend. And it doesn't need das bailam. And it's the same thing. He could fix it himself. So of course he's believed. But if you hold no, a person cannot take off truma without the knowledge of the owners. And the aide says, I know that he fixed it. And how do you know? Who says that a person can go say that that somebody took off trumas and maises? How do you know? If it's biyadoi, we'll trust him. But if it's not biyadoi, then you can't trust him. Hektish nami. Kedushas damim. If it's kedushas damim, right? Meaning if the guy doesn't give the actual thing to, like guy says, I'm going to give my car to the Beis HaMikdash. Right? It doesn't mean that he's actually giving the car to the Beis HaMikdash. He's giving the worth of the car. So anybody could go be paid. You go to the Beis HaMikdash, say, hey, that car the guy just donated, I want to buy it off for you. I'll give you the money. So that's from. And he kedushas a guf. And if it's on my kedushas a guf where he actually gave the car, so if it's his, he can ask back. He can be mater neder on it. But if it's Elamai, it must be somebody else's car who said he's giving the actual car to the Beis HaMikdash to drive the Kohanim around. And I know, and the guy testifies, I'm telling you, the guy was mater neder and he took back the car. He go from Minolan. How do we know he's believed? Konomas nami, the same thing with konomas. If you say that there's me'ilah, Kedushas damim nachsalu, and there's a kedushas damim that comes down on it. So but he could be paid it. Right, so he's believed because of ain't meila b'kainomas. And if you say there's no such thing as meila, meaning doesn't that get the kedusha of everything else in the Beis Hamikdash, and all he's doing is he's riding on his shoulders and Isser on this thing that he donated, that he made a kainam, a nether on. So if it's his, he has the power to ask back on and get it back from the Beis Hamikdash. So I'm not to be mataneder. Ela the acher must be talking about is somebody else's. And I know that this guy got it back from the Beis Hamikdash. So he go from it all. And how do you know that a guy's believed? So it's 3 kashas all the same. How do you know that a guy's believed on somebody else's thing? Now the Gemara says a major teretz. Amar of Zera. Since we're going to be so machmer on this woman in the end, meaning we're going to let her get married based on one guy's testimonies, but she knows that if this guy is wrong, she's going to get divorced from her first husband, her second husband. She's losing all her money. She's mamish out in the cold. So because we know that it's going to be so strict, so we're very mekel because we trust that she did due diligence to make sure that this is legit. So therefore, we can be very mekel to accept testimony because she's not going to do it unless she's 100% confident. So Gemara says, okay, so loy lachmer v'loy leikum. What are you saying? We're going to be so strict on her that if the husband's still alive, so don't be so strict on her, and don't be so mekel to accept all the testimony. So Gemara says, no, mishum iguna ekilu barabanan. Because of iguna, we're always very mekel. We do not want a woman to sitting and being an aguna. We can't have that, right? Okay, it's late enough. We can't go more than this. Fine. Okay, we did 1 Amud. Tomorrow, hopefully, we do a blot and a half, and we'll catch up with Bez Hashem after Yom Tov. Tomorrow, what time? What time tomorrow? So what time is Plag?
Last week we did 5:40.
No, it's certainly we need more time. We're gonna call it for 5:25.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock? Can't do that. 5 o'clock.
Most people are gonna go home. Most people should be home already. Whatever, no working. It's Yom Tov. They're taking off anyway.
Yeah. Nah. 5. Okay,
I'm in for 5.
5 o'clock is good.
5 o'clock is good, doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, better.
Where's Aaron? Disappeared?
Yeah, they left.
Cats, you snooze, you lose.
Okay, let's call it for. We'll call it for 5:10. How's that? 5:10. 5:10. Okay, fine. And what's a Yom Tov? That's a long ways off. What's a Yom Tov? All right, I'm going to sign off here. Okay.
Yashikaya, have a good night.
Okay, good night.
I'm using my daughter's computer, so you must be the new host.
Why am I
stop recording?
How do I do that?
You're now the host.
Well, where do I go to stop recording?
Well, you can just end the meeting.
Okay, I can stop recording.